Okay. Continuing on with comments, I've provided separate resources, a couple PDFs that give sort of an outline of nutrition notes. This is the first one that looks at just everyday measuring. What I do. I use different scales I stand on in the morning. They measure weight, body mass, muscle mass. They record this information to apps. The scales cost $20 to $30 each, and I've been trying different ones. The Eufy one is one I started with first, and then there's Fit Index. The Eufy one, for some reason, is not measuring my visceral fat accurately. But the point of all this is it's not just BMI that you can get from your height and weight. It's your body fat. You want to know what percentage of your body is fat, and you want to know how much visceral fat you have, which has the strongest health conditions, and say maybe liver fat. You can get some of these measurements. I have a Fit Index that measures my sleep and amount of exercise each day, and heart rate. Also, I have an Amazon Halo on my other wrist, and it does a body fat measurement as well using photos and AI, and that seems to match what the Fit Index does or shows. So I have information about that and links to some of the articles and resources I have mentioned in this video and other posts. And they're at the Economic Thinking site too. And I have a second nutrition notes is on sort of different books that are important that I think are relevant to this epidemic of absence. Looks at the autoimmune diseases that the author argues are caused by the lack of disease in modern society. Nina Teicholz's Big Fat Surprise is in-depth research on how we got obese, and she claims it's because of the misguided dietary guidelines and has plenty of research in support of that. I Contain Multitudes is looking at the microbiome, and that another massive story. And then Gary Taub's Case for Keto is looking at and he's saying, look, not everybody needs to cut down carbs, but for a lot of people, for whatever reason, carbohydrates just turns to sugar, makes them heavy, and they need to find ways to reduce it. And it turns out that is not so hard. I write about my own experience, which, as I mentioned earlier, was finding myself overweight and researching this and switching to more fat. And then basically I wasn't hungry as much. I didn't have the cravings. And I also mentioned how this happened to me in 2003. I didn't know why. Looking back now, it's because of the Atkins diet was in the news, and I was reading articles about tens of thousands of people trying the Atkins diet and losing weight. And I remember at the time I stopped eating sugar. I stopped eating cinnamon rolls, and I just cut back on carbs. And I lost at that time the same 30, 40 pounds, and that was 20 some years ago. Any case, this is a story. It's a lifestyle issue, and it's nothing radical. Low carb diet is not a weird, crazy diet. It's just going back to what people ate in up to the 80s when the government started pushing the low carb routine and all the yogurt went to low fat. My mom spent decades drinking skim milk instead of regular milk, and that the health benefits for that are questionable. Okay, there's many videos. I'm not sure which are the best. I recommend ones I think are a good start for everyday medical doctors who learn this experience themselves and learn from their clients. And thousands of people have switched to reducing carbs and lost weight and regained their health. A few days, a week, people are reducing their insulin. People with type 2 diabetes, people stop taking insulin in large numbers. Hundreds of these doctors now, they won't even prescribe insulin for their patients. They prescribe dietary changes. You should talk to your doctor or a doctor before doing this stuff if you have type 2 diabetes. But this is part of the story on that end. Separate is the story that Dr. Eid talks about, which is the nutritional mythology that got us to the dietary guidelines, the low carb world or the low fat world. So, we're recovering from this dietary guidelines that sent the whole country off track, and Western Europe and other developed countries, according to Dr. Eid, again, documented but very limited research on this, the claim that people should eat lean meat and low fat dairy. The argument is that's the opposite. That's the cause of obesity, surprisingly enough. the 2015 WHO report, World Health Organization, claiming that meat causes cancer, also questionable. She describes that. And then the Eat Lancet report, which is taking this a step further, saying, look, everyone should stop eating all meat because better health, good for the planet, ethics of harming animals. So Dr. Eid describes that. I'll just stop this thing. So she, why are these studies bad? She says they're lengthy, they're difficult to read, they're off-putting. They misrepresent the science as the current nutritional guideline update does. They omit studies that contradict their claims. Again, they're sort of captured by special interests. Most people don't care enough. The people who do care are the people who benefit from the status quo, the food industry, the people in government already, the people in the nutritional departments who write these studies, who are funded by the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry. The arguments, she makes the case, irrational, incomplete, inconsistent. They're intended to influence global human behavior. But that's made Americans, people in the United Kingdom, people in the European Union, more susceptible to disease, to chronic conditions, and to the COVID is worse. So fear-mongering, disease, death, planetary destruction, and this is all misleading according to the author here. So I encourage you, again, do your own research. I'm making these claims, but I'm encouraging you to research it yourself, to find the best arguments you can for vegan and vegetarian diets. John Mackey of Whole Foods Market makes a strong case for better nutrition, and he doesn't eat meat and doesn't recommend it. He's a smart guy, as are many nutritional researchers in this field. So it's an adventure. It would be handy if it were less complicated, but that's the way things are. And I encourage you to email me if you have questions. Thank you very much.